The Key and the Clinging Daughter. The small, newly discovered manila envelope lay on the antique mahogany table, the final piece of Robert's complicated puzzle. It contained the key to safety deposit box 247 and the note confirming Antonia's darkest suspicion. Robert had anticipated Angela's betrayal, not just her need. "A safety deposit box," Angela murmured again, running a trembling finger over the number. "Do you think Dad left us jewelry? Maybe something we can sell quickly?" Antonia watched her daughter, carefully noting the shift in her eyes, a momentary glint of the old greed, quickly veiled by the current desperation. "I don't know, honey," Antonia said, keeping her voice soft and hesitant, the perfect tone of a woman overwhelmed by unexpected complexity. "Your father was never one for ostentatious things. It's probably just old documents." "But it's worth a look, right? We have the key, and the note says he intended it to help us." Angela grasped the word help like a life raft. "If you feel up to it, we can go tomorrow. Downtown is a long bus ride," Antonia sighed, ensuring Angela understood the inconvenience and the humble mode of transport they would be taking. That evening, Angela settled into her old room. She tried to maintain a facade of helpfulness, clearing the dinner plates and offering to do the laundry, but beneath the surface, the shame and the panic were visible. She was constantly on her phone, checking accounts that were almost empty and listening to voicemails from Edward's furious creditors. Antonia knew the truth about Edward's debts thanks to Mr. Peterson. The banks were indeed circling, and while Angela wasn't legally responsible for all his loans, the apartment used as collateral, the apartment owned by Robert Investments, Inc., was the primary target. Angela was caught in a perfect legal storm of her own making. Antonia let the tension build. She offered no solutions, only tea and sympathy. "I just can't believe Edward did this," Angela wept later that night, sitting on the edge of her mother's bed. "I gave up everything for him, the beach house, the car. I even risked losing you, Mom, and he just threw me away." "The beach house was special, yes," Antonia agreed gently, "but possessions can be replaced. Love cannot." "I was so foolish," she whispered. "I thought you were old and alone and that I was helping you by managing your assets." "Managing my assets by selling them for 30% of the profit," Antonia thought, but she simply stroked Angela's hair. "You were grieving, dear. We all make mistakes when we grieve." This was the lie Antonia had decided to allow. Angela had constructed a narrative where her actions were regrettable, hasty mistakes made under pressure from Edward and the stress of her father's death. She was not ready for the reality. She had acted out of pure, calculated selfishness. Antonia knew she had to allow the illusion of mistake to persist until the very end, ensuring the final lesson was that much more impactful. The Central Bank Confrontation. The next morning, Antonia and Angela took the bus downtown. It was a clear, cold day. Angela, used to driving her luxury SUV, shifted uncomfortably in the worn seat, glaring at the slow traffic. Antonia, meanwhile, enjoyed the view, savoring the knowledge that she could have easily called a car service, but the shared experience of inconvenience was crucial for Angela's current reality. They arrived at the Central Bank, an imposing structure with granite pillars and bronze doors. Angela seemed visibly nervous, adjusting her clothes as if hoping to appear wealthier than she was. "I'll be doing the talking," Antonia instructed calmly, presenting the key and Robert's death certificate at the deposit box desk. A few minutes later, the bank manager led them into a small, private viewing room. The heavy, metallic box, marked 247, was placed before them. As Antonia inserted the key, Angela leaned forward, her breath held tight. The anticipation in the small room was palpable. Angela expected gold, bonds, maybe a hidden stack of cash, anything to magically erase the debts and the humiliation. Antonia opened the box. Inside, there were no jewels, no cash, and no bonds. There was a single, neatly folded document wrapped in a blue silk ribbon. Is that, is that it? Just one piece of paper? Angela deflated, her face falling. Antonia slowly lifted the document. It was a formal legal certificate, the kind that only a lawyer could truly appreciate. It was the ownership and share transfer certificate for Robert Investments, Inc. Antonia handed it to Angela. "What does it say, honey?" she prompted, her voice still gentle with a subtle new firmness. Angela read the first few lines, her brow furrowing in confusion. It says, "Transfer of 100% voting and financial shares to Mrs. Antonia Brooks." Mom, what is this? This is the company that sent me the eviction notice. Why is this in Dad's box? "Read the rest of it, dear," Antonia prompted, her voice still gentle with a subtle new firmness. Angela continued reading, her eyes scanning the dense legal jargon until she hit the key provisions. Her voice began to shake. "This is the deed for the property at 420 North Street. That's where the building is. The whole building. And the one on Elm Street, that's the condo. And the other 6 properties, and it says Robert Investments, Inc. owns them all. And I have been served an eviction notice from the owner of the building." Angela looked up, her face pale, the confusion rapidly giving way to dawning horror. But if Dad owned the company, and he transferred it all to you, then you own the company. You own the building. You are the one. Antonia took the document back and placed it on the table. She looked directly at her daughter, shedding the mask of the naive widow for the first time in months. Her gaze was steady, unwavering, and colder than Angela had ever seen. "Yes, Angela," Antonia confirmed, her voice clear and measured. "I am the one who sent you the eviction notice." The silence in the viewing room was heavy, broken only by Angela's ragged breathing. All the confusion, the panic, and the false narrative of mistake vanished. She was faced with the cold, hard, legal truth. You knew?" she stammered, scrambling to make sense of the past weeks of pity and humility. "You knew I sold your house? You knew I took the car? And all this time you were letting me live with you?" "I knew, Angela," Antonia confirmed. "I knew the moment I opened the first envelope Robert left for me, the large one, the one I put away 6 months ago, the one that detailed his life's work. He didn't just leave us the beach house, he left us a considerable fortune." Angela's eyes welled up, but not with sadness, with a sharp, searing anger mixed with utter defeat. "You lied to me. You sat there and watched me worry about where I would sleep in 30 days. You watched me cry over Edward's debts and pretended to be the poor, abandoned mother. You kicked me out of my own house with a 2-minute phone call," Antonia countered, her voice rising slightly, cutting through Angela's accusation. "You sold possessions that held the last cent of your father and treated me like a disposable burden that needed to be moved out of the way for your investment in Europe. You reduced 45 years of unconditional love to a commercial transaction. What was I supposed to do? Comfort you while you packed the proceeds from my fraud? But why not tell me? Why this theatrical performance? Because Robert wanted you to love us for who we were, not what we had. You proved his caution correct. And because you needed to learn the difference between being poor by chance and being poor by consequence." Antonia leaned forward. "You came back here believing you had hit bottom because of Edward. You blamed him, the waitress, the bank, the anonymous company, everyone but yourself. You needed to experience the consequence of your choices, that moment when you realized you had betrayed the one person who would truly help you, and then you had to beg her for shelter." Angela fell back against the chair, the fight draining out of her. The shame was now total, complete. She wasn't just broke. She was exposed as greedy, manipulative, and deeply foolish. She had traded a fortune for a fleeting, fraudulent adventure with a cheat. Antonia watched her daughter, the years of pain and sacrifice mixing with the current determination. The anger was fading, replaced by the maternal will to salvage her child's soul. "I love you, Angela," Antonia said softly, "but I will not enable the person you have become. You abandoned the wife, the daughter, and the human being that I raised." She slid the eviction notice across the table,